Di Foster.
Hello.
Here we are with another batch of accidental business owners.
And Hamilton again.
Yeah, welcome back.
Pleasure to be here.
Second home almost for you.
Second home. Maybe Dunedin, but anyway.
Third home. So we record these as batches, and at the last batch of episodes, which was 4, we left the studio and then got into quite a heavy conversation.
We did. We tend to have a day of recording or a morning of recording, and then we go back to the office and we do some planning and discussions, and we did.
Your Post-its are still on the wall, actually.
Oh, I bet they are.
I took a couple of them down, which were now irrelevant.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So we've moved on from a couple of things.
A couple of them, but there was quite a big topic that we spoke about started over lunch, and I thought we'll bury it over lunch.
Nope.
And it carried on through afternoon tea. We forgot to drink water.
We did. I was not happy.
Dehydrated. It was a lot.
It was.
And it was all off the back of an email that Stephen had received. Actually, we both received at the start of the week.
Shared inbox.
Shared inbox, which I hate now.
Yeah. We're not. Should we talk about that on one of the episodes?
We should do.
The shared inbox.
I don't use it anymore. I don't know if
Good.
you've noticed.
I
don't use it.
I'm waiting for Steve not to use it.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. Hey, Steve, welcome to the episode.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks. Happy to be here. I've just got one word on my notepad today, and that's Luxon. And that's what you guys are talking about, right?
That is exactly what we're talking about.
So, yeah, to set the scene, we got an email to our shared inbox, and it said, it was from the Prime Minister's office, which grabs your attention straight away. What's going on here? And it asked if we would be interested in having the Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, on Between Two Beers. And that's the sort of email that you screenshot straight away and you send to, I send to everyone I know. Holy shit, look at this. And it sent us for a bit of a spin, didn't it? I think it took us 7 days to come to a decision that we made. But I think I changed my mind 3 times across that 7 days. And what we're going to talk about is the process of how we came to that decision and why we arrived at it. Is that what we're doing today?
I think so. I think it was a really robust process that we went through because Seamus was very set in his ways. He was just like, this is the answer.
On brand. As is my way.
This is the answer and that's it. And you were flip-flopping, and not in a bad way, just in a really good, challenging our thinking way. And I looked at it and went, right, I'm going to come in hot and heavy on that you should do it.
So I put the Prime Minister's office in a holding pattern and I said, honoured that you'd think of us. We have been deliberately apolitical up to this point. We haven't had any politicians on. It's been a deliberate choice. This will challenge our thinking, but we're going to need a bit of time to discuss and see if it's the right fit. And he said, yep, have you take all the time you want. And that is when we had this conversation. So my initial thought was yes. I was like, what an opportunity, the Prime Minister to come on your show. He doesn't do long-form interviews like this. I thought about what it would do for our brand, what it might do for our audience growth. I looked at all of these things. And Shay was automatically a no for reasons that he can talk about. But then we went on this process of asking people, and it was incredibly
Stop you there. Yeah. You went through a process of asking people.
Yeah. Yes, Shames did not ask anybody.
Ask anyone or share it with anyone. So when I got the email, my immediate reaction was no, because my dad, little blip there. My dad was always like, you can't trust the politician. And I was like, well, he's going to give us the version that he wants, not the version that we would like. Despite our best intentions, despite giving a platform, I just couldn't shift my thinking from he's going to say whatever he thinks we want to hear. And throughout the conversation, I think I wavered a little bit.
Definitely.
A little bit, but I was always on the side of no. But I listened. I think that's where I coined, and I stole this from someone else. I coined the defend, not attack my position.
You were very good at it.
Yeah.
I think we all held really, really great space in questioning the decision and like going round in circles as to, if we just take a step back, the thing that came out of it for me was, well, what is your brand? we were discussing, is it on brand? Well, first of all, the discussion was, well, what is the brand and why wouldn't it be on brand? And we were really heavily discussing that. It was a real big conversation around, do we ever have politicians? Do we have past politicians? Do we have this? Do we have that? If we have this person, do we have to have somebody from the other side? Do we have to do this? Do we have to do that? And I think a lot of the questions that I asked were just around finding out where the thinking was at. So I was like, well, if you have him, then you've got to have another 4 people. And everyone was like, well, we're not doing that, And so it was interesting, wasn't it? Just that questioning of each other.
An absolute masterstroke from Di Foster in playing devil's advocate, by the way. Didn't show your hand about what you thought, just kept asking questions as to try and crystallise our thinking.
Yeah, it was good. They're tugging us in different directions. So I guess I want to explain my thinking. So originally, like I said, I saw the upside. And then I thought, well, if we got Luxon in and did this sort of puff piece type chat, and I know how it would go. It would be warm and cozy and he'd tell some stories. But I didn't back myself or us to be able to appropriately challenge him on some of the policy positions or some of the things that our audience would expect of us. Like, we would be able to ask the first question and get in there, but he would have an answer, and that's his job, like what he does for a living. So I was like, well, if we did a normal style of interview and he said the right things, I didn't think it would look great. I thought we'd get hammered for it, and probably rightly so. And also, to Shay's point, I didn't think he's going to tell us that we want to get guests in who open up to us and tell us who they really are and share things they haven't with other people from a place of vulnerability, really. And I didn't think we were going to get that.
To start with, though, you were like, you were like trying to believe in yourselves to say, actually, we could get this. And I think Seamus and I both said, actually, you're a bit delusional if you think, because the better the politician, the better they are at curating the story as to how they want it. And I think one of the critical points was we said, well, if we were going to do it, or if you guys were going to do it, then you wouldn't be asking any policy type questions. And then it was like, Seamus and I both went, then we're really falling into the trap, or, to be our part of the PR machine,
Yeah, but I also thought that because it's such an unusual setup for a politician to be in, if he knows he's with us for 90 minutes and he knows he's going to have to talk about some stuff, and we talk about his childhood and, I don't know, in New Zealand, we do our normal style of research, we're going to get him into some spaces which he isn't normally in. So that's where I thought that actually there could be some gold coming out of it. And that's why I was like, I sort of would back ourselves at this point to get something out of him that others wouldn't. So I was like, yeah, I can see that could be good. And it was because we had a conversation with, I won't name them, but 3 of New Zealand's top journalists. And 2 of them said we should definitely do it, and 1 of them said we definitely shouldn't.
I think that was one of the places that we'd got to, is that Seamus was set in no. You were definitely inquiring, and you'd spoken to a few people, and we were 50-50 on yeses and nos. There were hard nos and there were hard yeses. There was nothing in between. And I remember after, I think it was about 90 minutes, close to 2 hours on that day, that I think I said to you, actually, you guys must know some really good political journalists. I want to hear what they've got to say. And so you did, didn't you? And so they were 2 yeses and 1 no. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah, I had 2 no's. I also spoke to a former press secretary for one of the political parties.
Yeah. So we were split. And this is now getting into day 3 or probably day 5 after the email had been received. So this was not a quick process.
And I was taking it so serious. It was seriously. Such a big call, I thought. And I remember 2 of them who said yes had been trying to get Luxon on their show all year and said, well, he won't do interviews with us. You've got to take it. It's such a good opportunity. But I was also like, well, that's also a reason not to do it.
I think that's when I flipped, when I heard that he hadn't taken the opportunities with political editors or political, what do we call them, political journalists.
Yeah.
That kind of
I'll go with old Stephen Shea. Give me a few soft touch.
Yeah, that's. I was sort of a little bit like, that's not cool, because these are really good journalists. I rate them. And so I was just like, And I think what was interesting is we all kind of then, through the process, we had to talk about what our political alliances were or what our political thoughts were, which was hugely interesting to me. Like, I wouldn't have guessed some of the conversations that we had. I was like, really?
Yeah.
Because I'm come from a very blue family, and I would say that I sit in that central, in that really balanced part. So I'm a bit of a swing voter in terms that I'm very clear on policy and personality. And each 4 years, I'm like, okay, what are they up to now? Or 3 years, whatever it is.
And I think we also, when we stripped away the political element to the story, it was kind of like, well, what's the story?
Yeah.
And it's like, former CEO of Air New Zealand. Yes, that's a big job. But would we talk to other former CEOs of Air New Zealand? And it was a really good, robust. I feel like we said robust about 16 times. It was a really good process to go through, really critically analysing who and why and what we do in terms of platforming and helping to tell stories.
Yeah.
And then we arrived at a decision.
We did, and it was like a Saturday morning because we were waiting for Seamus to talk to the last person.
That's right. Yeah.
And Seamus was like...
It was Matariki, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was going to say it was a long weekend. And I remember you saying, right, I'm out, guys. We can stop talking about this for a day. And I was like, that's Seamus taking space to make sure he's tunes into himself. Because one thing I adore about Seamus is that he likes to be very careful of who he's listening to. So I took from that you'd heard everyone's voice enough and you just needed to listen to your own. And the one thing that I love about you, Steve, is that you're just so curious and you just like double down and back yourself. It's like, let's go, come on, people.
Yeah, and I feel like we talk about this now as a moment where we kind of really discovered like who we were as a podcast, as a brand, and sending that response back to the Prime Minister's office saying, hey, look, we've had a bit of a think about it, thanks but no thanks, was like, okay. And someone said to me, you are what you turn down, which I really really liked. And I was like, wow, okay, we have started this podcast in a garage in Hamilton and now we're turning down the Prime Minister for good reasons.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
And for your reasons. I think that's the bit that I was super, super proud of you guys about, is that you did it for your reasons. You challenged yourselves, you thought about it. Seamus, we got him off the hard no into the maybe, which I think was important because otherwise you would have been just too close-minded. And, you and I, Steve, we flip-flopped all over the place.
Well, that's why I was so happy that you were part of it, because Shay straight away was no. And I just wanted us to talk about why it was a no, the reasons behind it. But I know, and I think this speaks to the what a coach brings, it allows us, it facilitates these conversations that we would struggle with otherwise, because we're in each other's shit so much. He's like, no, it's a no for me. I was like, yeah, but he's like, no, I don't need to hear about you. No,
exactly. Yeah, just close the door on it. And
you open that door and we played around and it got quite tense at times because
that was hot.
Yeah, that was nice. It was actually really nice. With Di and I backing you into a corner, like, who do you think you are that you could outwit the Prime Minister?
Fuck you guys! I can crack him.
Yeah. But then also you flipped things around on Seamus and I, because we were like, well, you can't do this and blah blah blah. And then I remember this one moment where you flipped it right back on us, and I thought, oh shit, I don't even know what I think anymore, because I was a hard yes. I was an absolute hard yes. I was like, I need to get these boys over the line. Like, I want to see this happen. And I was going to come and make the coffee. I was just like, I've loved politics my whole life. Like, absolutely love it. And I was just like, how could anybody say no to this?
I definitely had an element of fear of the repercussion of saying no.
Yeah.
About like, oh, does that close the door on any future? And I think you did a really good job of saying no for now, and I think the response was, well, the door is still there. When you guys are ready, you can walk through it. And it was kind of like, okay, well, that's quite interesting and powerful at the same time.
Which I actually think it's more when they're ready. There's a difference there.
When you're no longer Prime Minister.
Well, that's what we firmed up. We're like, look, no, not a sitting politician. Former politicians, I think, can work if they're significantly removed from office, right?
Yeah, see, I disagree. I think there is one exception, and I think that why I was really wanting to push us to do this is there's one politician that I think is an exception.
I think that's what I said, because you're like, oh, we do Winston. And I was like, well, what's the difference, right?
It's Winston. It's like, it's different.
Yeah.
And it's different because I'll just go on the record of saying this. I wouldn't say I'm his biggest fan, but man, I tell you what, you have to respect his career and how he has played the game. That man, when he has not got power, goes away and shuts up, and then he pops up again, and I think, gosh, surely is he still around? Like, I was sure he would have, when you look at how many times he's been kingmaker, you have to respect him for that. Like, it blows my mind.
I think a part of the decision was my insecurity too. Like, we know what we're good at and we know what we don't know, and we don't know politics. Like, we're not going to pretend that we can go in there and battle with the Prime Minister on political grounds. Like, we're very removed.
Yeah.
I was a sports judo. I don't know what you were, but
I'm not a political animal, that's for sure. Like, I don't take a real vested interest, and this is me kind of opening up about politics and policy and where things are sitting at, probably shifting now a little bit as I'm getting more old, but before my vote would probably just be a popularity vote.
So I think why we talked about that today is quite often we talk about, like what's top of mind. And in reflecting, when we met just before this, we said, what happened last time we were together, and what were we talking about? And how many times have you thought about the decision since you sent the email, Steve?
Only when I tell people about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like quite an interesting conversation piece. People ask how things are going, and we've added it as like a slide in our keynote.
Yeah.
And interestingly, we did one a few weeks ago, and it got a round of applause when we spoke about our reasoning behind it and sort of, our position of replying to the Prime Minister's office saying thanks but no thanks.
So you haven't had a thought of you made the right decision or wrong decision?
Well, not until right now.
Oh, no, you've opened the door again.
You have. I was thinking, I don't know. Like, yeah. I'm flip-flopping again.
No, you're not.
No.
I think
He is. He actually is. He's got to reopen it. Bloody hell.
How many times have you thought about it, Seamus?
Twice. 3 times. Once when... 4 times. So the 2 people that I spoke to asked me what our answer was. They just couldn't... They couldn't wait to find out. So I told them that. Once during the keynote when we put it in, and once in preparation for an episode that we've recorded about that. Is this an interesting kind of subject area? And then we agreed to take it out. So 4 times probably.
I always judge my decisions on how how often they pop into my head afterwards, and I mean, obviously it wasn't my decision, but obviously, I get to be real close up and, in the mix of it. And I honestly never ever thought about it again. And that's how clear I was that you guys had made the right decision.
Let's hope so.
No, absolutely, without a doubt. Because if anything, I think that you have become very clear on who you are. And that's a good thing, because what you say hell no to is then there's the hell yes side of it. The things that you need to step up to and lean into that determine who you are. And this is just one of those no thank you, or at least not at the moment, options that reflects on what you're going to lean into and what you're going to say hell yes to. And I think it says more about you that you said no than you were chasing the clicks.
Can I go off script a little bit on an area around this?
No.
Sorry, mate.
You know how a lot of companies talk about values and missions and mission statements, and they've got them all documented? We don't have any of that. But is what you're talking about...
Actually, we do, but I'll email them to you. You didn't get the memo.
No, CEO's not passed...
Mine's on my wall at home.
CEO's not passed them down.
Be a good bastard.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about essentially, right?
100%.
But do those have to be documented and articulated, or do you just live them?
Well, ideally you live them. And I think that's one of the first things that Steve and I talked about was, if you understand your value and if you understand your values and if you understand what value you provide to other people and you're living it, then that's more important than it being on the wall. Because how many times have we been into a company and we've read their mission statement and thought, bullshit, nobody's living that. And so when there's two of you and you start, you start down a journey and your best mates and this is how it, has worked out, that's fine. You guys know the values between you. We've probably started talking about them a little bit more out loud. But if you were to end up with a team of like 10 or 15 people, then it would be really important to communicate those values. It would be far more important to live them. I always think that with my son, there's only a certain age that he listens to me, and after that, he's just going to be watching me. So I think I mentioned at some stage when I was overseas, he was asking me how to achieve his goals. He's got this big goal that he wants to achieve, and I gave him a whole lot of ideas. And naturally in his personality, he's a little bit resistant to start with, and then he'll go away and think about it and do it. So you kind of like just keep dropping little things in. And he asked me a question. I said, Jackson, I'm not going to talk about this anymore. And he said, why? And I said, I'm going to show you how to achieve the things that you want in life. So just watch me for the next 6 months and I'm going to show you. And I did, like we were away in Europe when that happened, and I just come back and I've openly shared with him what's happening in my working life to show him, because I think it's far more important to live it.
You might need to come in and do some work with the Holloway kids because they need a little bit of guidance.
We always start with the parents. So based on what you just said about values, mission, sharing with that.
You guys have done that I'm not aware of.
Yeah, no, we did. Yeah.
I don't know when you're joking or not.
I know we have done it.
Oh, okay. So you're not joking.
It was the very first session because what we were talking about was competition and knowing who you are. And so let's just talk about that for a moment. Let's just shoot into a coaching moment. What are the values of, let's just go back, Between Two Beers?
You were there, bro.
I'm always worried now of saying the wrong thing because you hammer me if I...
Oh, that is so not true.
Nah, okay. What are the values? Good. Is it like good buggers?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So good buggers, we nail it, and we're sort of storytellers, expert storytellers. But are those values? Is that?
I think your fundamental value is that you're good buggers. Is that you're mates and you're good buggers, and that's what you live really clearly. And I think that what you do is tell exceptionally good stories, and you're so good at it. That's where the nailing it comes in. What else is a value? Like, I would think that honesty is a value.
Yep.
Like you're an exceptionally good storytellers because you go for that underlying truth, and you do it in a really beautiful, subtle way. So you don't come in with people hot and heavy and sort of try and hammer it out of them. You just kind of slide along and get alongside them and lure them into a false sense of security.
Yeah, it's a real sense of security. We always create a safe space.
Yeah. I'm in danger of slipping into some of our words, but like authenticity of those are the guests we connect strongest to, and those are the people in our lives who we feel closest to, who are themselves, right? And there's not putting on a front, or they're not saying something that they think other people want to hear. So,
based on a little bit of gag reflex on the authenticity word, but that's okay, we'll move on. Next he's going to shoot out with
vulnerability.
Create vulnerable moments.
raw vulnerable moments.
I'm trying, though.
But no, all jokes aside, like if that is part of our vocab, do we just lean into that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All jokes aside.
All
But
jokes
let's
aside,
come back to authenticity. Steve would love it if we moved on from this.
Well, I kind of think this is quite critical because I'm sort of sitting here feeling a little bit vulnerable, going, oh, I don't really know any of this stuff. I would just keep doing what we do and show up every week.
Yeah, because you have built a brand on being yourselves.
Oh, okay.
And so ultimately,
living it.
Yeah. And so why, if we wrap this round to the Luxo conversation, why then, Steve, you just said then that, you've leaned into people being themselves and being able to be themselves. You've created a safe space. So why was Luxon a no in the end?
Because I didn't think he would be his authentic self.
Because it wouldn't matter what you did.
Mm.
He is a current and career politician, and he is the Prime Minister.
Yep.
And I cannot it doesn't matter how good you are, on what planet is he going to let his guard down?
Yeah.
On what planet is he going to be slightly vulnerable and truly himself?
Yeah.
And I would almost argue that I'm not sure many politicians would actually know who they are because they're so on in that space that I think that's what they become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good, though.
And that's why it was always a no for me.
In this moment, Seamus is like, just in case you wondered, we just spent 28 minutes proving that I was right.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
good chat.
I was authentic.
Oh, God, this is just getting
Should we call it, eh? Should we call it?
Let's go.
Yeah.
We're calling it.
So, yeah, that's the story of us in the PM.
Yeah. That
Good
was
chat.
an accidental business lesson
See you next
on
time.
values.